And when I walked back to the house, I went to the wrong house. Like I didn't realize that I just wasn't going up to my family's house. The couple who lived there were sitting there and they responded very strangely, like, common, but, and my dad was 60. And so I had these older parents, no siblings, and I never had anyone to play with. Like I'm more capable of being alone. No, everything I do is going to embarrass somebody.
How did you then embrace that embarrassing feeling down the line?
I mean, I do stand up now. So it's basically all I do.
Hello and welcome to another Cosmic Chat with the beautiful and lovely Olivia Janile. She is a now Los Angeles-based stand-up comedian, but she has a beautiful message she's going to talk about today in regards to coming from being an only child and to connecting through various events, through seemingly codependency, to now being connected to all one through life struggles. And we're going to find out how she's ended up right now. So let's get to the first question. How would you describe the taste of a banana to someone who's never tasted one?
That is such a wild question. When I think banana, all I think is texture. Like it's almost like, to me, banana's almost tasteless. It's like more how it feels than it tastes. Like, is that weird? It's just I associate it with a texture versus a taste. So it's like that slimy sort of, it's a slimy feeling. That's wild. Describe a banana. Yeah, all I think is texture. I just think of like a texture with like a slimy inside and a textured outside. That's not answering the question at all, but
it's
that's
your
the best
answer.
I think I got.
It's your perception. So tell me about the first time, predominantly in childhood, you remember experiencing an event that caused some form of existential life crisis, where you took a look at the world and was like,
Oh my gosh, this is such a funny question because this just came up for me. I was journaling and I was like, where did this memory come from? But I was at a cookout, a family cookout, and I went to the car to get something. I was young, maybe 5. And when I walked back to the house, I went to the wrong house. Like I didn't realize that I just wasn't going up to my family's house. And they had their front door open. I walked in the front door and I looked around and I was like, what is this? And the couple who lived there were sitting there and they responded very strangely. Like they were like, hi. And I remember being like, what? And that was the first time I ever really felt embarrassed. Like I remember that. And I like ran from the house and like ran back over to where I was supposed to be and never told my parents. And I was like weirdly embarrassed about it.
So how did that change your outlook on life?
I think it was like the first time I realized that like those feelings are possible, right? Like when you're like a little kid, you don't know anything until you know it. It's like the first time you do something is then you learn that that's a thing. And so it was very weird to me to feel this sort of feeling of embarrassment and not even necessarily know what I was feeling at the time, but like feeling like, ooh, that didn't feel good. Like, I don't love that.
So did you then try to take steps to never feel that way again?
Yeah. I'm not doing well at it, but yes.
So were there times where you could feel it coming on and then you would maybe blame someone else to save face?
Oh, I'm sure. And I feel like it like dictated my behaviors. Like I remember thinking like, I need to be more careful. I mean, I'm sure it didn't seem that way in childhood. Like it was, I don't know what that actual thought was, but it translated to like, pay more attention to what you're doing. Like you don't want that to happen again. That was weird.
So with that perception, did you find your behavior was more careful?
I mean, 30 years later, or however long ago that was, no. I don't know. No, I don't think so. I think it was like a fleeting thought. I think it was like one of those things where I was like, I could have avoided this basically, but didn't last.
And when it had how did you then embrace that embarrassing feeling down the line?
I mean, I do stand up now. So it's basically all I do. It's like who I am. Maybe, what if that was the event that led me to where I am today? Maybe it was. It's very weird that my first recollection of like a new emotion was embarrassment. says something.
But would you say that you get embarrassed when you're on stage?
Embarrassed is I think embarrassed it circles some of the emotion sometimes, but it's not like the primary emotion by any means, but it's definitely an aspect of it, especially if things aren't like going well, or I say something stupid, which is fair. I mean, embarrassment, I think it borders some of the emotions I feel on stage. I wouldn't call it the direct emotion, but, I think it's sort of it's adjacent.
Mm, mm. Do you go out of your way not to embarrass other people?
Oh, God, no. No. Everything I do is going to embarrass somebody. It's either me or you. I don't know, maybe both of us. No. It's almost, it's part of who I am.
So you had that experience when you were 5. When was the next moment that there was a shift in your perception to the world around you?
Gosh, I remember being also pretty young and getting locked I was in a bathroom at a roller skating place, and the toilet paper was stuck. Like, when you start a new roll of toilet paper, it's like sort of seared together. You can't get it off. And I was just sitting on the toilet. I had like peed, and I was like, what do I do? I can't get it off. And I think I left the bathroom door unlocked too. And like multiple people walked in on me and then just like left. And I remember sitting there crying for like 20 minutes and being like, what am I going to do? I can't get the toilet paper. And that's it. That moment also stands out to me for being like, what was funny about that though, is my mom didn't come to check on me. Like she was there and I felt like I was gone forever. And I was like, why doesn't anyone care that I'm missing?
So no one cares that you're missing. So how did that then change your perception in the world?
I don't know. I think it was one of those, maybe, again, it all feels very clear now as an adult, but as a child, I'm sure I had no idea what I was thinking. But I think it feels very much like how small you are in the world. Like, it's like you're just one of billions of people, right? And it's like, I think when you're young, it's like you believe that the whole world revolves around you, like, because that's how it is, right? In your little family, in your little house, whatever that looks like. And I think I had this like sort of moment where like my mom was doing, I think it was actually maybe my birthday party too, which is wild. But my mom was doing other things, right? Like probably entertaining, cutting the cake, like, thanking people, whatever. And I now can see that. Like, it was like, she probably had no idea how much time went by. Like, she was like doing other things. It's funny though, to think about that. Like, you don't always, like, you're not the center of attention all the time. I was an only child as well. So it was very different for me when I learned like, oh wait, I'm not the only thing in the world that matters. I mean, if we're honest, I still haven't really learned that.
Would you say that you not were ridiculed, but that became apparent when you had friends who did have siblings, that there was a little bit of jealousy that you were an only child and you got your own space?
Yes. And it's weird because I had the same jealousy on the other end, because like my parents were older. Like my mom was 40 when she had me back in the 90s. That was older. Now it's fairly, common, and my dad was 60. And so I had these older parents, no siblings, and I never had anyone to play with. And so I remember having that same jealousy of people who like had to share a bedroom. Like I was like, you have a built-in best friend, like someone to play Barbies with all the time. So it was a fun dynamic to see like, things that my friends, because there were not very many only children in my experience. Like I didn't have a ton of them around me. So it's fun.
Do you feel that you've missed out at all?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think by being an only child, for sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of experiences you get to have as you get older that it would be really fun, and also the challenging experiences that you would get to share with. Like, I just lost my dad 2 months ago.
Sorry.
Thank you. And I just remember thinking like it was just me and my mom. And I remember thinking like, gosh, I wish that there was someone else here to like share this burden with. Cause it's like, of course I had my mom, but like we carry that differently, right? Like she lost her husband, not her dad. So it was like, just wishing that I had someone to sort of share that sort of stuff with. Like, when you get married or whatever, all the things, like it would be very cool to have someone who's known you your whole life. See that?
Do you have an aunt or an uncle that you have that connection with?
No, again, I had an older family. And so it was like, it was very small. Like I have a lot of like distant cousins and relatives, but like, yeah, just sort of me, just, out there.
And then how did that fall on you? Did you fall on that it was the burden for you to find your own solace, or did you go out there to find friends or extra connections to fill that gap?
Yeah, I think it was always, I mean, I don't know, it's fun. I played alone as a kid a lot. Like, and I think honestly, even now, it built this creativity that I have that I think helps me a ton in writing and performing and stuff. Cause it was like, I spent hours just like, and this again was before tech. I was born in 90. I'm almost 32. So like I didn't have technology as a kid. Like I remember getting like Nintendo 64 when I was like 10, and that was like a big thing. So like before that, I was like playing alone with like stuffed animals or like, those little plastic like animal pet shop things. So it's like that's all using your brain. Like you have to like anything you're doing, you're creating. So I think that was cool for me. I think it built a lot of foundation I use today. But I also my mom especially was very intentional about making like what's the word I want, play groups. Did you ever do that? Like my mom was like, we're gonna get you in a play group, and it was like a bunch of kids. Basically it was probably just a bunch of parents who needed 5 minutes away from their kids,
Right?
But we would go to like McDonald's and do the little climbing thing and the all that, and it was like a weekly thing or whatever.
Did you foster strong bonds with any of those children?
I had a couple of girls my age in my neighborhood. It was cool. So it was very interesting because I was an only child, and then there were two groups of sisters, and one of the sisters in each group was my exact age, and then they both had siblings. So like they always had each other, and then I was kind of like the fifth wheel. But we did like neighborhood things, like put on like a Spice Girls rollerblading show. Man, if I could go back and find it, like if I go back and find some kind of footage of that, that's the worst part about technology, like up and coming now. Like if I could see, I would pay to see that. Anyway, I was posh, and I didn't even get to pick my Spice Girl. Like I think I was like, I don't know, out of town or at vacation Bible school when they chose. So posh got handed to me, and I like low key love that she's like the most successful one now. Like I mean she married David
think
Beckham.
That reflection of who you are.
Yeah, I will take that. Okay. I mean, I know I did nothing for it, but I will take it.
So being an only child, when you left home, how did that bode on the family dynamic?
It was very hard. And again, because my dad was older. So when I moved out when I was 18. So my dad would have been 78, almost 80. And it was very difficult to like leave them, just like, so I'm from Pennsylvania originally. I moved to Ohio, which was only about 3 hours away. So, we would like take turns coming to visit and stuff. But then when the bigger moves started happening, it got more and more challenging. When I moved to LA, it was rough. It was a really rough, like I every time had those moments of like, will I ever see you again? Especially with my dad, because so he was 90 when he passed away. So it's like every time you like leave someone or get off the phone with someone at that age, you're just more aware of like the fact that they don't have forever left. I mean, none of us do, but so it was challenging.
And did you feel responsible with your mom, especially now that she's on her own?
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain responsibility. I mean, I think that's very, it's a very like, what's the word I want? A push and pull internally, because I know that my mom like wants me to be successful, and she's like so proud of me for moving to LA and doing all this stuff. So she would never not want me to do it. But in the same token, I feel like it almost just comes naturally to feel this sort of worry and burden. And I don't mean that with a negative connotation, a weight, I guess, a weight of like someone being, because I mean, I hate being alone, and I'm 31. Like I can't imagine like how, and she's lived her whole life. I mean, 30 plus years with my dad. So it's very weird. Like I'm in the middle of a divorce, and I've only been with my ex-husband for 10 years. And I know how it feels to be alone at night. And it's just like, and even though it's like what's best for us, like that was a choice on our part. It wasn't something that happened to us. And I know it's still challenging. So I can imagine how she must feel like just doing things alone. But
Right. And so you got married quite young then.
21.
And And that was, that's a long-term a marriage to be in relationship. And if you were looking back now, would you say that you were finding a community younger than maybe some of your friends because you were only child?
No, it's very weird. I think for me, I was trying to fill something else. I don't know, maybe more of a sort of a codependency thing that I think I've been aware of for some time, but like just now is coming to like front and center for me because the idea of being alone is so scary that like every time I do it, I'm like, why is this such a problem for me to be alone? And I think that that's probably a reflection of that. And again, who knows where that came from? Maybe it was because I spent so much time alone as a kid and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Who knows? But yeah, very weird roller coaster of life. Very weird.
Right. And were other friends of yours where you grew up also getting married in the early 20s?
I would say not quite as early as me. Like, I mean, so I didn't go to like regular college. Like when I got married, most people were like in their junior year of college. I went to nursing school. And so I didn't have that traditional experience of like going away to school, living in a dorm, all of that stuff. So I think that mine was probably early. But I think probably in the Midwest, like mid 20s is like what I see a lot of people like getting engaged, getting married, having kids by the time they're 30. So it's very weird. Like I feel like I did a lot of it really early and then it just kind of hit the pause button on life. And I felt like I wasn't like growing or doing anything. I was just like sitting in this space of being like, who am I?
And do you feel that obviously it's a pretty amicable separation?
Yeah, it's very, I think for me, that's one of those clues that like we should have done this a very long time ago because it was so easy to do. Like, and even now, like I'm actually at his place in Vegas here right now. I came out this week for shows, so I'm staying with him, and like it's effortless for us to just coexist and be friends. But it required so much effort to be romantically compatible, to like force sort of a love connection, a thing you see in movies of, couples Pinterest board. That was forced, but the friendship it's organic. So I think that sort of was one of my signs. And we were able to start coexisting as like friends. I was like, yeah, we should have let this go a while ago.
And what do you think, obviously it was always movies or the Disney idea of finding someone. And as you quite well put up, then, you didn't grow up with technology the way Gen Z has, but it came in very early in childhood. And so maybe not so much the movies, but seeing the Pinterest board or on IG, now it's official, that still that message came in pretty much of codependency, validation. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, it's crazy when you see all that stuff too, because it's like, it gets ingrained in your brain without even realizing it. Like when you see these things, right? Everything you see on Pinterest, it's funny how like, I don't know, take a vacation, right? It's like I want to go to Paris, but it's like very rarely do you see just the woman like in Paris alone, like, eat, pray, loving it. Like that's become its own thing. But like for the most part, you're still seeing like these couples who are like so happy in front of the Eiffel Tower. It's like the world creates a couple's bucket list for you. And if you're not fulfilling it, like you feel like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Like I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to have love because we didn't go to Paris, because we're not doing the stuff on Pinterest, because we're not picking apples,
Right.
So and I think that was like one of the reasons that like I was like, I'm going to get married. Like, I mean, and that sounds really awful to say it that way, but like, yeah, I was like, I want to fulfill these dreams that I have.
Even though you were a product of a later in life union, right? And definitely when people are raising children who are older, there is more wisdom to offer in general. And still that permeated down into your consciousness, following a cultural, let's say, norm to be norm, even though there was this open-ended, and then you coming to this awakening of, whoa, no. Do you find that freeing, but then also there's that hole that you feel?
What I think is weird about being conscious and aware of it now is that I can still, just because I'm conscious of it doesn't mean it's not happening. So it's almost sort of like when you have those moments where you see it happening, where you realize I'm making choices because of Instagram. Like the things I'm doing right now are being fueled by targeted marketing or Pinterest or whatever. It's almost like it's a very surreal moment where you're just like, it feels sort of like a crossroads where you're like, do I continue doing this because like I still have that sort of thing, this desire that's being driven by all these outside sources? Or do I like halt and be like, wait, do you really want this? And honestly, most times I still continue to do what is being fueled by. So it's very weird to know, to be aware of it, to see it happening. And still, it's like when you can't quit smoking or eating sugar or whatever, like, you know, like you're like, I shouldn't be doing this. I don't feel good about doing this. I'm going to feel like crap tomorrow or 5 minutes from now, but here we are, you know?
But there is this other form of dependency, right? And exactly as you had said, the conscious mind knows that this isn't either for me or, you know, this was the start of marriage, right? That this wasn't right for a long time. But deep down, there's the inability to shift that behavior. So the subconscious runs all the behavior, which is why, you know, sometimes the idea of writing down what you want to have happen in your to-do list seems so far away because the subconscious is embedded with that deep core programming, right?
Yeah.
And changing that usually requires a deep experience to flip that switch, right? There's difference from, like you said, knowing something, you know it, but being able to shift and change that. Do you think that requires a capacity to be able to go inward to oneself and being okay, even if it doesn't feel right or feel good at times?
I think it requires, for me, what I found, I think more than anything, it requires the actual desire. So I can't tell you how many times I've been like, smoking specifically, right? This is a new thing for me. Who starts smoking in their third? Like, sure, I'll take up smoking during a global pandemic that involves your respiratory system. Why not? Why not have fuel to the... So anyway, how many times I've said, I'm going to quit smoking. But like, I've noticed that every time I say it, I don't even mean it. Like, I don't really want to. Like, I do because it's what's right. But like, I don't really want to. And I've noticed that the times I've been able to actually make shifts in my life is when the desire is coming from me, not from like what I should do.
Exactly. And one of the things that we do with Aware Meditation, and you can see it in the description, is we have a little workshop of creating creative visualization, but it's from learning the soul's desire. And the soul's desire is often juxtaposed to what we think we should be doing with our life. And that's a very easy sort of workshop and program to work with, is about really being able to listen to what's inside. And some people use the terminology rigorously honest, like really being honest with oneself. You're not quite ready. You're not quite ready to be able to do that. Now, had you always known this, or was there a moment where you became aware that it really isn't honest for you to quit?
I don't think I'd always known it. I think so. I had really just picked up smoking here and there when my dad got sick, and I told myself, which I did frequently, like I was like, I'm not going to buy any more cigarettes. And I remember getting off the plane in Ohio, like rushing to see him. He was in the ICU, and thinking to myself, you're not going to quit smoking right now. Like I remember having this moment being like, I physically don't even think I could handle, like, I don't know. It seems very weird to say, but I was just like, it's one of those, it's probably a control thing, right? Like I need something in my life to be able to be like, this is my break time. This is my stress reliever, whatever it is. But I realized in that moment, you're right. Maybe I wasn't ready. I mean, maybe I'm still not ready. Like, I think we have to, anytime we walk away from something that has a little bit of a hold on us, we have to supplement it with something. It doesn't have to be a bad something, right? It could be a good something, but it has to be something.
Right.
I think I'm always trying to fill voids, right? And sometimes it's really great things, right? It's like sometimes you quit smoking because you started exercising and you can't breathe when you run if you're smoking, you know.
Yeah, so another, exactly what you said, I think, is stress release, another dependency, right? For something to give a seemingly, it's a false sense anyway, a false sense of stress release, right?
Yeah.
Not long term. What do you do then, apart from having a cigarette, to help yourself get back to who you are on a daily basis?
That's a great question. Honestly, writing is huge for me. I'm big into journaling. I try to journal, like I did the artist way, and I got into the morning pages, so journal 3 pages every morning. And then writing like comedy, even if I know it's going to be dumb and it's like nothing I'm ever going to, because honestly, let's be honest, I mean, 9 times out of 10 it's dumb and something I'm never going to use, but like just the act of writing it out, of writing it down and being like, here's what's going on in my head. And I think just accepting parts of myself that are there without like, I mean, I don't want to say with no judgment, because as I stand right now, I'm like, well, that was dumb. But you know what I mean? Just allowing whatever thoughts there are to like free flow and being like, hey, you wrote 3 pages of something stupid. And guess what? You didn't die. Like just allowing all of who we are to like be there and be like, cool. Not all of everything is, I mean, even bananas usually have like a brown speckle somewhere you have to throw away. Or you eat it. I mean, I'm a weirdo and I won't eat it, but some people eat it and it's fine, you know?
And they can be extra sweet the more ripe they are. But
That's
absolutely true. Having that ability to allow the nature of the mind, which wanders all over, right? We live in this culture that tells us we have to focus, focus, focus. But there's a part of the brain that needs to unwind and process. And they found that with non-directive meditation techniques, the brain not only lit up more in an MRI study, but it activated parts of the brain that processed emotions and thoughts. So it allows a part of the mind to actually unstress by moving through all of that. And writing is very helpful because it simply gets it out and what's underneath it. And those of you who might be curious about what is a meditation practice that doesn't require concentrating, well, if you want to, you can check out the free ebook, Vedic Meditation Stories. You'll find the link there, and it's the only publication globally that has true stories from individuals who basically never would have wanted to meditate at all, and how it's changed their lives. And it's not edited at all, so you hear their true voice with that. And if you want to know more about what is aware meditation doing to change the consciousness, global consciousness. So there's like a change of mind, right? We change our mind a lot. Then there's a mindset, and then there's a state of mind. But below that is our consciousness. And as we've been talking about, not really ready to quit the smoking, that's a deep, deep surrender within, that there has to be a shift in consciousness for that to be sustainable. And more than that, we want a meditation practice that is sustainable. So check that out if you're curious, and also what we're doing globally. And if you feel like you want to donate to the nonprofit, the links are there below. So what would you say moving forward now, going through this separation, that you've had a perception shift about yourself?
Gosh, so many things. This year has been wild for me. I think most importantly that I think we're all so much stronger than we ever think we're gonna be. Like, I think that I don't know about for you, but for me, there's like certain scenarios I've built up in my head my whole life of like, if this thing happens, I won't make it through it. Like, it will be terrible. And one of those things was getting divorced. I mean, one of those things was losing my dad. And the fact that those things have happened, and like, obviously by no means have they been fun or desirable, but like here I am, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still like getting up every day, granted maybe at noon, but still it's happening, like I'm still doing my thing. One of my biggest fears was that I wouldn't be able to do comedy when these really tough things happened. And honestly, it's been easier to do comedy, which is wild to say. So yeah, I think I'm stronger than I ever imagined myself being. Like, I'm more capable of being alone, even though, again, I have a very big push and pull for it. Like, I'm like, I hate this, but I need it. So it's like, again, I'm doing it. Do I love
Right.
it? No, but I mean, maybe that's also something to learn. Is that like, sure, we should love our life, like we should love them, but like, you're not going to love everything you do all the time. Like sometimes it's just necessary.
That you didn't die and you have more experience of, you know, alone, all one, right? All one.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure that you still feel your father around, even though he's not here in the physical. And remembering that there were positive aspects that you can embrace now more, because there isn't the physiology of that person where the unconditional love comes through, and dealing with what is that all one idea, anyone, anyway, and being more open-hearted, right? When the heart breaks, it breaks open as well.
Yeah.
And if the consciousness of the individual is to not close it shut and disconnect completely, but to go through it, as it very much sounds like you have been, what happens is the heart opens wider and things are less about being alone, right? Because the connectivity can be, I don't know, someone on a plane, someone, you know, that you sit next to, an amazing moment that you've maybe been trying to have with, I don't know, someone you might be seeing on the side, and you haven't even had that kind of connectivity. And then you sit there on a plane and have this wonderful chat with a stranger and think, how can I have a deep, wonderful conversation with seemingly a stranger, and yet someone else here that it's not occurring, but it's purely consciousness either telling you, hey, move on, that person can't give you what you want, because some stranger can have a deep connection and awareness that there are options in life that we move through. And what a beautiful testament of going through that social, cultural validation and realizing, yeah, no, it didn't work, but it's okay. And it's healthful to move through to the next chapter.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's very cool. It allows so many different people now to fill voids in healthy ways in my life. Like, so, you know, just accepting support. I think it's another thing that I know specifically, I hear a lot of women struggle with, is like accepting help, right? Like so many times we get offers, like, can I do anything for you? How can I support you? And we're like, I'm fine. I got it. But like when you're actually not fine, it allows people to step in and really support you and love you in ways that you didn't know you needed. And that's been really cool for me.
And that's also part of opening up the heart, is accepting help, accepting love, right? Accepting that, and being able to not feel owed. Yes. Right? Because that's also part of that consciousness, that tit for tat, as we say in England, consciousness. Oh, but I can't do that because then I'll feel like I owe them. Yeah. Well, that's that person's consciousness. And the only way to break that is for one to not live in that. And communication, right? Communication. So if you really enjoyed our lovely chat today, please communicate to others and share, or like and subscribe to really support the channel, and let us know how much you enjoyed and what you gained from our cosmic chat today. I can't talk now. So with that, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you on the next cosmic chat.